Good morning. It's Jeneen again from Jeneen C.A.R.E.S. I'm excited to be with another Frederick County Public Schools board member. It's exciting to see their commitment. It's exciting to see their unity as they continue to do what's best for all students, all stakeholders in our district, and leave a legacy leadership impact on everyone that they work for and work with in our community. Because restorative practices teaches us that it's important to do things with others, with parents, with teachers, with staff members, with community members. And so thank you for being here with Jeneen C.A.R.E.S. to kind of show how much you care about our community and to just give a message of hope and share your insights and your leadership lessons and life lessons. And so thank you for being here today, Ms. Gallagher. I really appreciate you and your time. I really applaud your leadership in Frederick County Public Schools. And just tell me a little bit about your background experiences that have helped shape you and arrive at the place where you are today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me this morning. So yes, I have been a Frederick resident for about 15 years, moved here to Maryland from Michigan. Didn't really know that this was going to be the place where I stayed and landed, but Maryland really grew on me. And so we've planted our roots and this is where we plan to stay and raise our family. So my most important role is a mother. I have two young children, two daughters who are 5 and 7. So I've been able to spend lots of time with them in the last couple of months as we've all sort of been home and hunkering down during the coronavirus crisis. Professionally, I've spent a lot of time working with young people. So right now I am a program director with a nonprofit called the Center for Supportive Schools, which works with schools in Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. to implement social emotional learning programming. And really we're not implementing, we're partnering with schools to build their capacity to be able to weave social emotional learning into their daily school day. So there's curriculum, but it's also thinking about how to shift school culture to really be a welcoming, safe, supportive space for all students. And so I've spent most of my career working with nonprofits focused on working with young people, in particular in educational and employment settings, to fight against the systemic barriers that they might be facing so that they can all be successful in whatever path it is that they would like to take. So you mentioned I'm on the Board of Education here in Frederick County. I'm the newest member, was just appointed in January of this year, and am seeking re-election to remain on the board to continue the work that the board is doing. I also serve on the Western Maryland Advisory Council to the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights, and serve as one of the co-chairs to the Hate and Bias Subcommittee. And we're working on developing ways to address how bias and hate incidents show up in our communities, particularly in Western Maryland, and looking at those systems such as policing, health, education, employment, where bias is showing up and what we as community members can do to break down some of those bias and hate incidents. So again, all residents feel safe and supportive and can have access to these systems in ways that they need and should have access to. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm focusing on in Frederick County and in my general life, I guess.
Awesome. That is an amazing introduction. And as a parent of 5 students in Frederick County Public Schools, 3 stepchildren and 2, I have a 6-year-old at Yellow Springs Elementary, and I have a graduate of Tuscarora High School as of yesterday. So I'm excited to celebrate them both. And I can only imagine what you're dealing with, the 5 and 7. So that kind of homeschooling issue thing is going on there as well with you. And
Yep. Absolutely.
I am appreciative of hearing about your social emotional learning, and I am glad that you were appointed to our Board of Education because it definitely is in alignment with what our county is doing now in terms of the K through 2, all of the across the county implementing the PATH curriculum. And so as a parent, I am very excited to see that because I know how important it is not for my child just to learn academics, but to be cared for and nurtured. And a lot of our research says that that's important too, care over content. And so I am so appreciative as a parent to see him learning the right vocabulary to use when he's frustrated or to express himself or to share as a young Black male the impact of his actions, choices, or words on others. And so for me, it warms my heart to hear that we have a board member who is already leading in that work in her daytime job. And so thank you for that work that you're doing with different people across the state and county. So thank you for that. So now we're going to go into a little bit of social emotional and reflection and restorative practices style interview. And so the first question is, as of March 13th, I think the date was, we were put on quarantine. And I'm wondering what's been most present on your mind from that time, to now? What's been most present on your mind?
Mhm. So, so many things. I think that at the beginning of the crisis, or when schools really closed, there was just so much uncertainty for everybody about how long this was going to last, what was going to be the impact, both on family and on our community. I don't I didn't think when we closed on March 13th that it was going to end up being the rest of the school year. And so I think initially, as a parent and even just, in my professional life and on the board, thinking about what do we need to do in these immediate weeks to make sure that our students have what they need, are cared for, still have some connection so that when we get back, we can kind of pick up where we left off. And then it became clear that there was not going to be any returning to the school buildings for this year. And so I think a lot of what I've been thinking about is, how to best maintain my professional world and also my personal world with everybody being home and having, the continuity of learning. So balance was definitely a big thing to try and figure out. I'm not sure that we ever really quite perfected it, but we got a lot of good practice. And for me, I was really thinking too about, our students who rely on school and the school community in many different ways, not just for the academics, but for the connection, the socialization, the food and meals that can be relied upon throughout the school day. Many of the students that I've worked with in my professional career, um, you know, struggled in many of those ways. And so school was often a safe place for them. And so when the school buildings closed, I think I was personally, and we as a board and FCPS community, were also just really wanting to make sure that our most vulnerable students, our homeless students, our students who might be in crisis on top of the crisis were okay. And so I think that the school district did as much as we could to reach out and connect and provide resources to those students. But those being concerned and worried about them was definitely top of mind for me, and I think for our board in general. And so as we're still facing uncertainty throughout the summer and going into the fall, really wanting to make sure that we can make sure those students and families are okay.
Yeah, I definitely can understand all of those points and that balance between personal and professional. This just the uncertainty of what's next and what will come next is something that is on everybody's mind. I think everybody can relate to all that you just shared. So, of all of those what do you think is the hardest thing? If you were really to search, I know that's a lot on your mind. What do you think is the hardest of all of them?
So I think for me personally, it's the uncertainty, just not, I'm a planner. I like to have plans and know what to expect next. And when you can't really see what the future holds, that uncertainty can kind of bog you down. And so, or it can bog me down. Um, but I think also just recognizing that everybody's facing this uncertainty together. And so we can still plan, but we might have to have 3 or 4 different plans in place, or at least in mind, to move forward.
That is so true. And being on the student services leadership team, I can definitely connect to what you said earlier about just, the concerns for the students' well-being and safety, but also the planning. A lot of the planning meetings are like, okay, part A, plan B, modification here. So I definitely can understand it. I can only imagine what you as board members are going through as you're trying to make approvals or decisions with so much uncertainty. So thank you again for your leadership and for your efforts. And so we always, as leaders, are trained to kind of, in spite of it all, find hope, be the inspiration for others. And what are you doing to remain positive with yourself, self-care, or with others?
Mhm. This is such an important question, and I think that we often can focus so much on trying to take care of others, particularly as mothers. And so I've definitely had to take some time to sort of step back and realize that I need to take care of myself. And so making sure that I carve out some time to be able to do that. But also, I think it's really important to recognize what is, like, this was part of your question, what is in your control and what is not. And sometimes that helps too, acknowledging I cannot control when COVID is going to end, or what the impact will ultimately be. But I can stay home as much as possible and protect, my family from exposure, and not spread the disease if we're exposed, right? So recognizing that we have responsibility to protect the more vulnerable members of our community. And then I think being on the board gives us, the board members, some unique opportunities to sort of step back and evaluate and examine what went well during this period of time within the school district for students, for parents. I know we've definitely seen some students actually really excelled in this virtual online learning environment, and some students really struggled. And so where is the balance that we can strike between those two areas? What can we learn and build on that was successful during this time? What can we offer to those students in the future, even when COVID is all over, that taps into where they were successful during this time? And then where do we need to improve and restart and accept feedback, critical feedback from our parents, from our students, from the educators, and really be able to think about planning for the fall and having multiple contingency plans. So even though there's uncertainty, there's still a lot of feedback that we should be considering, particularly from our students and parents about this time. And then I think also recognizing that, there are a number of really fantastic community agencies in Frederick who are doing great work to connect with families and young people. And so also, being able to connect with them to see how I can offer support or resources, or donations or whatever that may be. And so, and I think that in the midst of the COVID crisis too, we've seen the demonstrations that young people have been leading within Frederick County, around police violence, against communities of color. And so even just recognizing and celebrating their leadership within the community, even during this really trying time, there's a lot of really positive momentum coming from our youth leaders, which is also really exciting to see.
Awesome, really good points. Yeah, I think it's definitely important to first focus on yourself and your self-care so that you can continue to be the givers as parents, as leaders. Naturally, we do a lot for others, and so we have to take care of ourselves too. But also kind of would summarize what I heard you say in relation to just that community and supporting each other and the observation of how much care and empathy we're seeing from others in our community for each other. And it's really a motivating thing and an inspiring process to watch unpacked in spite of it all. And in spite of all the hurt feelings and observations of things that are not so positive, it does warm my heart to see the community building that's naturally just occurring with different people and different backgrounds. And so that's definitely a great thing for our community, for our country. One community together strong, one nation together strong. And so we're looking for equity and excellence everywhere. And I'm seeing that the hope for that message is coming. And so finally, I think it's really important to be present and to be positive. And so thinking about that, what messages of hope and positivity and inspiration do you want to send to our parents who may be watching, our students who may be listening and learning from you? What messages do you want to send to them?
So I think that for our young people, for our parents, I would say you're doing great. Keep pushing forward. Find those connections that you might already have, or make new connections in those times when maybe you're feeling like you could use a little boost or some extra encouragement. This time, I think, has been difficult for a lot of people. We've been isolated in many ways, at least physically isolated from each other, but that doesn't mean that we have to be socially isolated. So, reach out, find those connections. For the parents who had to balance so much between learning and professional life and personal life, you're doing great. You can do this. We can all do this. I understand how hard it is. But some mornings I had to just wake up and give myself that pep talk. Like we're going to do this, and everything ultimately is going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. We're going to get past this. We're going to get through this. We're going to learn something from this. And we do collectively have a lot of power to make changes pushing forward. And that would be my message to our young people too, is that, you have so much power in your leadership and in your voice. And so keep building that, keep finding ways to connect and lift each other up and listen to each other and learn from each other. Even if somebody has a different perspective from you, take what you can from that person and leave behind the negativity. But I've been so inspired by the young people in Frederick County who've been taking on the leadership to push social change forward. And I would say, keep doing that. We need your leadership and we need your voice, and we need for adults in our community to hear what your experiences have been, to help us shape change moving forward.
Absolutely. Those are some great messages, some keywords that I want to highlight that I heard from you. Listen, learn, legacy leadership is what you're describing. It's all about learning and growing with people and learning from people, and that collectively we have a lot of power. And so working together with people, and that is what the key messages of restorative practices are. It is how much you can do things with others to build community, and then in the times of conflict and tension, how do you work reflectively, collaboratively, hearing and listening to each other's perspective to make progress in understanding each other and to repairing the harm when it occurs, because there's no family or community that will not experience conflict. Whenever there's two or more people involved, there's chances are you're going to get some kind of conflict at some point. And it's really about how you address, how you respond, how you're open to have a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and to say, you know what, maybe I don't agree, but I appreciate your perspective and your presence, and celebrate, like you said, each other's strengths. And so I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate you and celebrate you as a legacy leadership in Frederick and beyond. And I look forward to continuing to watch your leadership. And so thank you so much for your time today and for your commitment to the students and the community of Frederick. And so thank you for all that you're doing beyond the city of Frederick as well, and all the things that you mentioned earlier in our interview. And so I want to say this is Jeneen from Jeneen C.A.R.E.S, caring, achieving, restoring, empowering, and supporting. And I'm reminding all of our leaders, our young class of 2020, especially, we applaud you all over the country. This is a special time for you to be leaders, where you can learn all you can learn from others. You can empower yourselves and empower others around you. You can act by collaboratively working with people to draw up an action plan for change and social justice even, and to dream big. Know that you can do anything you want in life, and that we're here as adults to support you and guide you. And so thank you again for your time and your energy and your positivity and all of your hope and inspiration through your messages today, and your time for doing community service for our children. And so thank you. And
Yeah.
I
Thank you also for everything you're doing for our community as well. And I really appreciate the time this morning.
Okay, well, thank you and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.